afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mastering Your Blind Spots, How Leaders Transform Team Performance. So, I wanted to start with a simple question. Have you ever walked out of a meeting wondering why the small challenges keep showing up, the same tension, the same misunderstandings, the same leadership moments that feel harder than they should? That is usually not a skill issue, it's often a blind spot. Our speaker today has spent more than 26 years helping leaders recognize their blind spots and turn them into strengths. It is an absolute pleasure to introduce Pavel Mashenko, founder of Leader Talent and the creator of the HeartFlex framework. Pavel has worked with leaders across the globe, partnering with organizations such as Microsoft, KPMG, Novartis, HSBC, government agencies, and the UN World Food Program. For more than 2 decades, he has also taught and coached leaders through the American Management Association, and at also multiple universities. What makes Pavel's work stand out is how practical and relatable it is. HarpFlex helps leaders understand the habits they fall back on under pressure and how these habits shape communication, trust, and team performance. Once leaders get these patterns, they gain the ability to change them. So before we begin, a quick note. Please hold your questions until the end. You are welcome to place your questions in the comments as we go. We will have time for some Q&A, and after the session, we'll also open a breakout room for anyone who'd like to stay and have a more direct conversation with Pavel. So listen for what feels familiar to you throughout this presentation. Notice what resonates with you, and be open to a new way of leading. This is when awareness turns into action. So please join me in welcoming the founder of Leader Talent and the creator of HeartFlex, Pavel Mashenko. Pavel, I am going to turn it over to you.
All right, Kadian, thank you so much. And let me just check that we do. Can you guys all see the PowerPoint? My PowerPoint? Yeah, are we good?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let me just change my now for a second. So okay. So as we're promising fun and engaging session about the blind spots and how it impacts the team, I usually start with this quick story, basically about Berkshire Hathaway. About last year, I think they announced that they have a new successor. But there was, before that, Greg Abel came in as a successor. There was another guy about 15 years ago. His name was David Sokol. And he was the youngest of five, actually. His family will talk about how childhood programming impacts us. He was very famous in the Berkshire Hathaway for his ability to turn around the company. So Warren Buffett they would buy the company that underperforming. He would go in and then he would turn it around using his innovative and brilliant ideas. And so he was called Mr. Fix-It, and he was considered Buffett's successor till March 2011. And then suddenly he unexpectedly resigned, and everybody was in shock. So let me do the sound for a second. I forgot to do the sound because I'd like to entertain you a little bit, my friends, and to show a couple of clips. So can you hear that?
What on earth does one make of the situation?
Can you hear that? Can you see that? Yeah, we good? Okay, thank you.
At Berkshire Hathaway, the sudden departure of Warren Buffett's heir apparent, the awkward disclosure that he traded in shares of another company, one he recommended to Buffett, and Berkshire ended up buying. And a defiant Buffett saying he won't comment beyond his statement last night Today, there is a dark cloud over one of America's most admired companies, and so many questions unanswered. Back with me this morning is Doug Burns, a former federal prosecutor. He's been our legal brain on the Roger Rajaratnam trial. But, Doug, I want to exploit your expertise on this case. Look, you raise an excellent question, which is one that we cannot answer. What on earth is a guy like David Sokol, who has responsibility, enormous responsibilities at Berkshire Hathaway, doing buying and selling shares for his personal account?
I could answer that if I were a psychiatrist, but I'm not. I'm a lawyer.
What on earth?
Okay, yeah. So, did you hear that? He thought he needs to be a psychiatrist, and actually, Charlie Munger, it's the Berkshire's VP at the time. He did this interview, and he gave me actually idea about to focus on the blind spots. Just listen to what he is answering the question from the Bloomberg about why it happened, because everybody was surprised.
In the big picture, well, you had a very talented, dedicated man who had some blind spots and stumbled into something that was, as Warren said, inexplicable and inexcusable. That's the substance of what happened. That doesn't mean we don't continue to admire the man's many good qualities.
Mm-hmm. Did this completely come out of left field for you?
Well, of course. If we thought it was coming, we would have been smart enough to ask when he bought the stock.
Right.
But no, it came out of left field.
Well, what I mean by that, Mr. Munger, is were there any signs beforehand that that Mr. Sokol could have done something like this, or that he had some character issues, that could have resulted in something like this?
I would not have expected any character issue. I think he's a bit pugnacious and determined. And so in that sense, you could imagine him stumbling into some controversy. And but no, apart from that, I would have no reason at all to expect. The truth of the matter is, it was crazy. There was a definite lapse of judgment here.
What he did was crazy.
Yeah.
So that's usual reaction. I don't know if you would agree if you think about blind spots, we'll talk about how we define. But other people, when they look at somebody's behavior, and for them it's kind of obvious mistake, why would you do that? This is it's a obvious, you should never do that. But that would be the very, very clear sign of the blind spot. And actually, we have on LinkedIn now, I've been doing the posting of the articles about different examples of the blind spot. And this is just another 1 minute of the video. Real story from my friend who told me about 15 years ago, actually, that when she discovered her blind spot, and then she cried for 2 days. She became a supervisor with her team, and then she worked very hard. And when it was a big company, they did 360-degree feedback, and the feedback shocked her. She said she cried for 2 days. So let me show that. See if I can do that. So you're welcome to sign in with LinkedIn, and can you see that?
That's what one new manager said after reading her first 360 degrees feedback. She worked so hard to support her team, but they described her as intimidating. That's the danger of blind spots. What you intend isn't always what your team experiences. The HarpFlex assessment uncovers those blind spots and reveals a clear roadmap to leverage hidden strengths. See what your team sees before it's too late.
Yeah, so that's a quick example of another blind spot and how it impacts their sharing. How it impacts. So, my friends, can you raise your hand and can say in the chat, say yes, that you do have blind spot too, that you're aware that nobody's perfect, and in your experience that you have. All right, so we have many, and is it something wrong with you personally? I mean, if I ask you because you have that blind spot, the answer is nothing is wrong. That's what I think one of the main messages. Let's see, am I sharing? No, let's see, go back to sharing. There's a couple hands. Okay, are we back with the slides? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So the way we define a blind spot is the gap between what you intend and what other experience. And usually, even like very bad people in our eyes, but if you talk to them, why did you do this terrible act? They would say, well, I had a positive intention. Like in their mind, there is always positive intention. But and then behavior is automatic. What we will talk about autopilots. Usually when we are on the autopilot, we behave certain way and expect positive results, but impact on our team, on our career can be devastating. And well, we have some raised hands. Should we have a quick conversation or?
I think you should continue with the presentation and then we can address Vignesh at the end of the presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Would it be okay, guys? Yeah. So
Yes,
thank you.
thank
So
you.
let's do that. Let's do that. And as so can you see this beautiful picture of my map of my professional career? So I created to work with my father's blind spot because he never approved my move from geophysics, my first degree in geophysics, and but then I ended up in practical psychology and as a corporate trainer, traveling around the world working with multinational corporations where we would teach skills. But very often when we teach skills, we discover that it's very important for leaders and ourselves to be very aware of our autopilots. And there are certain autopilots that bring us to those impasse, to the failures, when we trying to work effectively with our team, but because of our blind spots, so when we cannot basically predict and be aware what is the real impact of my behavior, that causes, as I think that I showed that slide. Yeah, it says here there's lots of research starting with Ellen Church's research in '97 that's showing that high-performing teams, they have managers who can predict how their team members perceive their behavior, like their actions. And that's the key. So they can predict and they know about their blind spots, and that's what they will do. And again, we all have blind spots. I have millions of stories about my blind spot and where the blind spots coming from. The blind spots, so our autopilot behaviors, and we'll talk about specific habitual autopilot relationship patterns or habits. We call there are certain habits that we formed, and where those habits coming from. I would say there is like 4 major sources. One is, of course, biology, genes. So we predisposed to certain behavioral actions, like how we behave, how we think, and how we feel in certain situations. And those instruments like Myers-Briggs or Hogan or DISC insights, they usually catch the combination of genes and nurture. So, but they could give us some ideas about our blind spots. Let's say for me, my first discovery of my blind spot as an extrovert when it was a long time ago, I attended a leadership program when they told us that when we go back to our teams, we need to ask for feedback. So that's what I did. After my program, after this leadership workshop, I went back to my team. I said that, guys, could you tell me what is anything I can do to make our work easier? And one lady, she looked at me and she said, you talk too much. And I'm like, no, and that's a clear, for me, it was like clear blind spot. It took me like 3 days to think about that. I thought, what she's talking about, I don't understand. So anyway, so hopefully today we will talk about the model, particular model that will help us to understand how we were programmed, not only by genes, but our family and cultural environment, and how we developed certain, not only strengths, but also blind spots. And we will use the concept in our models, we'll use the concept of habit that I'd like to give to mention. Of course, William James is the first guy in the psychology who start talking about habits. But what is the habit? It's something that usual way of behaving that we do regular and repeated basis, and usually it's unconscious or subconscious. So it's something that we do automatically. And it's like if anybody tried to change habits, especially in January, it's very hard, to give up. The research shows latest that 43% of our daily behaviors stay kind of on autopilot. But in reality, of course, I think that it's much more. And as a former engineer, I really like this concept of habit and relationship habits because there is a physical manifestation. They found that when we develop a habit, there is a certain neuron pathway in our brain develops. So that's what makes it in our basal ganglia. And how many times it takes to develop a habit? The recent research talks about 66 days, about 2-3 months. And then there is two types of habits that we are aware, and then habits that we are not aware. And those habits that we are not aware, they usually, came from certain repetitions, but especially the time in our childhood. And that's what I'd like us to spend a bit of time kind of to looking at our childhood experiences, that repetitive experience that we had in our early life that formed certain habits. So how about Kirian, because now we're gonna move to the exercise. I just like maybe if there's some questions that I can answer briefly about habits and what we're talking about. Is it clear connection between blind spots, how blind spots impact behavior of leaders with the team, and our autopilot behaviors and habits? Is it clear connection? Do we have any questions about that?
I think Natalie Ozuna has a question.
Hi, I
Natalie.
just wanted to make sure that I had it written down correctly. How long did you say it took to form a habit?
Well, again, different habits, they take different time. There is different research. One research that's probably the most famous by British scientists, I think 2009, 66 days, well, about 2-3 months. But they usually say, if you talk to people, coaches, who develop habits, they would say, 3 months, 2-3 months. It takes that repetition because as you're repeating and giving the focus of your attention in your basal ganglia, you're developing a new neuron pathway.
Alrighty, thank you.
Okay, any other, thank you for question. Any other questions to clarify anything? I'll be clear about that. I missed the slide after this one. Could you scroll the next one briefly? After this one, let's see. So let me go back to my slides. Missed the one before. This one, yeah. Well, here's the important. So the habits we can develop. Like, for example, I live in Florida, so I decided to learn Spanish because half of the Florida now speak Spanish. And because I know this theory that it takes only 2-3 months, but it's repetition. So I have to find the system. And for me, it's system Rosetta Stone, for example, because it has a built-in space repetition. Like when you go through this Rosetta Stone program, it has a spaced repetition system built in with they repeat you the same words many times. And it works like very powerfully. I do have certain intermediate level of Spanish now. When I go to Mexico, I could talk to cafes. And so it does take about 3 months repetitions, yeah. But the good thing, so we can develop, we can reinvent ourselves. We can talk about that later. But there are certain habits that have been developed already. Like, can you, somebody, if those of you who are from US, can you hear my accent, for example? Can you, anybody from US, can you hear my accent? Can you raise your hands and tell me? Yes, David, thank you. And yeah, but I cannot hear my accent. I think I speak perfect American English, yeah. And sometimes in Europe, when I do programs in Europe, they say you have such a nice American English. But here, everybody speak. I mean, the local people, the native, they hear that. So that's a blind spot that I need to be. Yeah, but this is something that it has developed unknowingly for me. Yeah, so in my childhood, because I grew up in Russia. Yeah. Okay, dokie. All right. So let's do some. Now we can focus and we'll do the fun
I
exercise.
think I
Yes,
think Christiana Trace would like to see slide 9. If you could elaborate a little bit more on that. That was one of her questions.
slide 9 about William James.
Yes, I think that's what she said at the chat.
Oh yeah, that's it. Just he was one of the American psychologists who started using the concept of habit. The better than some. Thank you. Oh, David, you're kind. Yeah, so maybe we can do that I mean, at the end then about because that's a lot. Okay, I just like make sure that you guys have some fun as promised for yourself. So there was a guy psychoanalyst Alfred Adler who would say that our brothers and sisters, so those habits that we may be unaware that they have been developed, some relationship habits, harps, they have been developed in our childhood. So, and you probably have heard the books, or read the books, or maybe you watched some video shows about birth order, how the oldest, youngest, middle impact. And I studied that for a long time, actually, and I developed, at some point about 10 years ago, I developed this model. It's called birth order typical habits model, about typical habits of the oldest, youngest. And what I would suggest now that we will have before I contaminate you with knowledge, I will, let's do the exploratory exercise. How many, how many people we have totally? Because I cannot see in our
So
program
far,
now.
we have 64 attendants.
Oh my God, 64. All right. Okay. So how about we just need to have a 5 or 6 volunteers? So we need to have a breakout rooms, and then in each breakout room, what I will ask you to do. So we'll have 4 breakout rooms. Can we? I need your help, guys, Dee and Katie. And so, do we have any only children here? Like we just need like 5 only children. 4 or 5 only children. Can in the chat, I guess, if you would let us know. Yeah, probably the best in the chat because we need to. I would need to have a help to arrange the rooms.
Yes. So Pavel,
So,
we have the breakout rooms open by the firstborn only, etc.
but yeah. So, but I need 5. So, how are we gonna do that? So they'll just go to those rooms.
Yes, they can join if they're
Oh, okay. So what I like you to do, I don't need more than 5, 6 people because we don't, we have a large group, and I'll give you 10 minutes for your breakout room exercise that you will present the results to all of us. And so let's start with only children. So please, only children, if you would go to the breakout room, and then if you have the firstborn, the oldest, preferably with your youngest sibling, not more than, let's say, like 3-4 years. So you are the oldest in your family of origin, but then your youngest sibling, who would be not more than 3-4 years difference between you and your next youngest sibling. So we need 5 oldest, and then we need 5 middle children, who would be have not more than 2-3 years difference between them and the older and the younger, so middle children. And then if you have youngest, we need to have about five, 6 youngest with their older sibling not more than, let's say, 4 or 5 years. And what I'd like you to do in your groups and then individually, my friends, yeah, for yourself, if you're not going to the group, so we will have a chat for next 10 minutes, actually, discuss questions and answers. But each of you, if you would think about, if you were the only, for example, what was the good news to be the only child? What was the bad news to be? What would you write if you were in the group, like just make a note. If you're the oldest firstborn, what was the good news to be the oldest firstborn? And if you were the middle of the youngest. But the objective in the breakout rooms, see if you can talk to each other for 10 minutes. So we need to do we have breakout rooms?
Yes.
Yeah.
So anybody in the chat, can you please let me know if you're an only child, a middle child, or a youngest child, so I can assign you to a break room?
Yeah, they can automatically join the breakout room also. We do have some people in the breakout rooms too already.
Already. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I
So
cannot see them.
I
So
say,
we may,
Christian, you're an oldest. Okay, good job. You're in the
yeah.
breakout
So
room.
your job is to discuss and to find
Mary,
if you can find any typical experiences that would be good news or bad news for the oldest, for the youngest, for the middle, and for the only. Is that clear? Those of you who are in the breakout. So maybe D, we would need to have a facilitator in the breakout because we'll give you 10 minutes to do that, but then you have to report to us what did you discover. Did you find any typical
Okay.
common experiences in your childhood as the oldest, as the middle, as the youngest, and as a oldest, yeah, or middle, or only?
Yes, and we have members of the team each joining the breakout room. And we'll take notes for them too.
Okay, but I need some speaker, yeah, so somebody who would speak for the oldest, youngest, and what did they find? If they find any typical, that's basically the purpose of this exercise, usually in the workshops, just to show, see if you can find any typical experiences, because each of us, we usually think, oh, I'm unique, my experience is different. Well, I mean, let's check it out. Maybe there is some typical habitual or repetitive experiences that happened because you're oldest, because you're middle, because you're only, or you're youngest.
Okay. So I'll join the oldest and I'll help facilitate.
Yeah, so 10 minutes, yeah, so 10 minutes. And with the rest of you, my friends, now we have time, basically, we can have a discussion in there. Let's see, so let me.
And Eileen, if you could join the middle too, because I don't think there's no one from the team in the middle room.
But
We have
did you put 10 minutes, so it's not more than.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'll start your timer.
Not more than 10 minutes. Okay, and then view gallery, and then I will. So is it clear what to do? Yeah, so we're good with share. Okay, my friends, so if you have any questions or comments, and those of us who are here in plenary, we can have any discussion that you like to have, but also I'd like somebody who never did this exercise, maybe we can predict, like what would be our predictions for the oldest? What do you think the oldest would say? Because they cannot hear us now, yeah? They're in the breakout room.
I think the only child only has one person.
Only is a one person?
It only has one person. So are there no other only children
Oh
in
my
this
God, that's usually, I
discussion?
have to
There's
go there.
there's
I'm going.
the main the
As
oldest
as
person.
yeah, yeah.
There's
Esther.
in chat
No,
No,
S in the
you have the Andrew also is the oldest, but then I think he is not in the breakout room. So maybe I will send him there. And also there's
So,
plenty. As the Danielle, so they're the oldest.
not
okay.
oldest. The oldest has
Christy,
20, but it's the only child that has
the
Esther.
only child.
Yes. Yeah, but Eileen, you're supposed to
Sorry.
be in the middle to
Yeah,
help.
yeah, yeah. I will. I will go there.
So we don't have too many only children. Yeah.
No.
It's usually, yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about what would we expect from there. But can somebody that only person can we help him or her to think about their childhood experiences and prepare to
Yeah.
present?
Alan, can you join Esther in the only child, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. So just interview them. What was the typical? What was the good news, bad news to be the only? Okay, my friends. So do you have any questions or comments? And how about what's your predictions about oldest? What do you think we will see from the oldest? What is that good news to be the oldest? Any comments? Any thoughts? Can you guys speak up? Do we have any oldest here? Yeah.
Kaden, I cannot go to the room, breakout room.
Yes, you can go to the middle child. I'll stay and moderate the chat.
Yeah, but I can't
Had more
get
special,
in.
okay, from David. Thank you, David. Had more special treatments and more attention when younger. Okay, so that's, yeah. We'll see if it's, so basically, all this firstborn, they have a special role. They were the firstborns, and parents were very anxious, and they would give, of course, lots of attention. Whether it's a good news, can it be good news or more responsibilities? Okay, thank you. Got all the good toys, not hand me downs. Yes, exactly. The first, they usually get the good stuff. Yeah, and then maturity at a young age. You have to grow up quickly. Exactly. All right. So that's very brilliant ideas. How about the bad news? Any bad news for their oldest? Any bad news for the oldest? I think they're always right. A lot of new baby comes, loses attention. Yeah, so life is changing. Yeah, and you mentioned responsibility. So you suddenly got a job. So usually the oldest, as soon as the younger sibling brought in life, their childhood is over a little bit. So they have to take care usually. We should know better since we are oldest when thought we are still learning too. Yeah, exactly. So there is expectation that you should know everything. Okay, very good. How about the youngest? Do we have any youngest here? What is that good news to be the youngest, and what's the bad news to be the youngest? Can we the favorite, David? Yep. So David knows for everybody the favorite, and the bad news, the bad news. What is the bad news, the favorite, David? We need to have explanation for that one. You can speak up. It's okay. I mean, you can just say. Let's just gather some ideas and then go ahead. Yeah, David. Yes.
I feel like if the younger child was the favorite, the family and the parents sees him as a favorite, he gets away or they get away with things. But then the siblings and people your age see the mistreatment and also pick on you because you're the favorite. So in a way, it has its pros and cons of being the favorite.
Yeah, so they have kind of usually like favorite being loved and all that. So we'll talk about like unconditional. They receive unconditional love, and they can stretch their rules. Yeah, so they can stretch their boundaries a bit without too many disciplinary actions. Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other? How about the bad news for the youngest? Bad news for the youngest. Bad news to be youngest in the family. Any hypothesis or any experiences from the youngest who are not in the groups there? Or maybe when you were the youngest a bit. From that, guarded always, especially, yeah, protected. Okay, so that would be the good thing, but also they are restricted. Yeah, so it's like you cannot do things that, yep, which is kind of pushing our button as to rebel and do something on our own. How about middle children? What is the good news to be the middle child? What do you think they would come up like the middle group? What they would come up with? Always neutral. Independent, exactly. So it's crazy how those words. I've been doing this exercise almost probably more than 20 years now, and it always comes up: independent, observing, learning from experiences, and then being neutral, balancing in between. Yeah. What's the bad news to be the middle child? Typically, again, and also unseen. That's right. Like we talked about, the oldest, they get lots of attention. Yeah. And usually, like if it's big family, then the youngest gets lots of attention because, they're baby at the time. And middle, they were baby at the same time, but then suddenly they lost. They're not oldest. They're not youngest who they are. Yeah, who they are. They have to work harder to get that attention. And usually the middle children, they're like brilliant strategists to get attention from their outside people. Yes. Any other thoughts about middle children? Okay. How about onlys? Pavel Mishenko is talking. Yes, I am talking. Onlys. What do you think would be their good news for the only? So is that lonely is a good thing or is it a bad thing? Would you say it's hyper independent? That's right. That's right. So it's like because it's just me. Yeah, I'd say me in the world. This is exactly me in the world, hyper independent. Yep. And lots of spending time by myself. And what I'm doing when I'm by myself, I'm thinking about different things, reading the books. Yeah. Okay, dokie. What's our timing, Kadian? Do we have how many minutes we have for the?
We have 1 minute remaining.
Yeah. So we'll see. Tend to learn by their own. Exactly. So that would be. So what? Let's take a look when they come back. I'd like to have a speaker from each group. And to report what is it that they find any common things. Yeah, like we have some hypotheses here, which actually brilliant hypotheses. Usually they're reflected, but let's see what in our breakout rooms when we have 5 people talking to and comparing experiences, see if they found any found independent for the only child too. Yeah, because there's nobody to depend. It's like me, parents, and the world. This is it. All right. So in only children, oh my God, we have huge group with the firstborns. All right. But we just need one speaker. They close in 49 seconds. Okay. Again, what we are talking about here is how we were, what I would say that starting with Alfred Adler, they say that we were programmed. We didn't choose to be the only child. We didn't choose to be the oldest or youngest or the middle, but certain repetitive experiences in our childhood, because they were repetitive, they did form certain relationship habits in our limbic brain, certain neuron pathways. Yeah, and then we'll see if they still impact our adult life or not, as a leader, as a manager, as a team leader, and okie dokie. All right. So are they coming?
Yes.
So which group should go first, my friends? What do you think? I usually ask this question, but for me it's a bit challenging. I cannot see them. But I usually ask which group would like to go first? And we have group, oldest, middle, youngest, and the onlys. From what do you think? Which group would raise their hand to go first? And which group will never raise their hand to go first? What are your hypotheses? All right, all this first. That's right. So usually what happens if nobody goes, it takes like 30 seconds. Then the oldest like, all right, I'll go. That's programming. That's autopilot. Like nobody's asking them, but they go. They go because that's their programming, yeah, responsibility. And which group never goes first? Like they never raise it from I mean, I had it maybe once or twice in 20 years, very rarely. Which group never raises? Exactly, Natalie, not exactly, Michaela. Yeah, middle never. That's right. That's right. Why they never will? Because they're smart. Yeah, they don't like to risk anything, and they don't feel responsible. They'd like to observe first, and then kind of to decide what to do. They never have to be fed. That's right. That's right. Okay, so let's start with the middle. How about we'll break our rules? We'll start with the middle because we'd like middle, and we'll talk about to be more in the leadership position. So let's go first. Middle, what was there? Did you find any typical for that? Usually it's quite challenging, actually, but did you find any typical similar experiences that you agree was a good news and bad news? So who will be speaking for middle?
Hi, everyone. I'm Eileen. So
Okay.
I'm the middle child. And in my group, I have Sasha Lopez, Patrick Serumula,
So how
and
many people you
Dwayne
had? Eileen, how many
Pavel. So
people?
we have four.
Four. Okay. Did you find
Yeah.
any typical? Did you find any good news? Did you find any? Were you able to find good news to be the middle, or it was all bad?
Yes, we agree. Four of us agrees that we are a negotiator and we
So
remain in
you
the
had to
middle and we don't
negotiate
want to
between,
fight.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you are the one
We
who
we don't have we don't want to have a problem or fight with each other,
conflict. Yeah.
so conflict, so
Yeah.
we don't like that. And then whenever we have a what's this decision making, so we put ourselves to somebody's shoes before deciding, and also we decide using our heart,
All
more
right.
more our heart.
Your heart,
Not
a lot.
not
Yeah. Kind of
yeah, yeah,
thinking.
the emotions. Yeah. And Sasha also is I am also surprised. I thought that I'm only the middle child who is an event organizer for the family, but Sasha says that the family her family is that the gathering of the family is organized by her usually. So I'm happy also to know that I'm also the event coordinator of the family. So whenever there's a party, so I'm the planner.
That's right.
So,
That's a
and
coordinator.
also,
You are the very good coordinator because you know
yeah.
how to balance things. Yeah. To hear. Yep.
Yeah, and then to organize things also, so that's common for us to organize things. And also for we have a project management skill that's common for us. And then we absorb the problem, and then we absorb if there's a negative like feedback, and then we absorb it, and then we like react on that, and then think of it, and then before reacting. So that's the middle
I
child.
said. Yeah. 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 So you usually.
So
Yep. Very good.
because
Very good.
we don't want to have conflict, so
Yeah. So you might avoid.
we
So
think
that
so.
could be the good thing and bad. Yeah. Bad kind of, potentially because you hate when there is a conflict. Okay, dokie. Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. How about
You're
youngest?
welcome.
How about youngest?
Hi. So
Christina?
I was chosen as the representative. So for the good and for the good part of the list, we said that sorry, I was gonna like announce who was in the group, but I'm not sure what everyone's names are. So I know
No worries,
at
no
least
worries. How many you had?
okay,
How many people? So we have some
around
statistics.
I think 7 or 8.
Wow,
It was
you
eight
did
of us. It was eight
Eight,
of
yeah.
us.
eight. Okay. And what are some typical, maybe two or three that you agreed was like good news? And what was the bad news to be the youngest that you
Yeah.
more or less agree? I know you didn't have much time.
Yeah, so the good, we said that emulating the good taste and behaviors of our oldest sibling.
You're learning. Yeah,
Yeah, we definitely learned a lot from them, and we kind of saw them as like our mentor. So we also saw them as our protector. So we weren't bullied as much in school because they would always like back us up or warn people not to mess around with us.
yeah. So you have
We
more safety and security inside, kind of, that somehow like, because they're protectors. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. We also grew our emotional intelligence and our maturity, I think, very quickly because we saw that either if they would get punished by our parents, like we would learn pretty quickly not to
That's
do
right.
those
Right.
things. And we had to kind of grow up as fast as our older sibling. Like we had the expectation to be as well behaved as them. So
And
we
it's like
also,
emotional intelligence, but also become like a natural psychologist in a way, because,
right.
you observed all these dramas in life and you learn from that.
Correct, yeah. So we also learned a lot from their work ethic. So we probably built a lot of strong work ethic because we had to do a lot of chores around the house, keep up with
Oh,
that.
nice. Wow.
But yeah, I think those are pretty good ones. And then bad, the first thing we said was like we would get their hand-me-downs. Like we usually get like all of their old stuff that I mean it could be good or bad, but a lot of them were either
Yeah.
old or outdated. And then another thing would be to fight for our space. Like we also had to kind of like especially if we had like multiple older siblings, like we had to make sure that we had to like kind of take dominance over our own like rooms or like any properties that we had of our toys or whatever.
Yeah.
We kind of had to fight for that. We
Yeah. And sometimes you couldn't, so
we'd
like,
lose, yeah,
because you didn't have enough physical power, to get exactly. So sometimes
right.
you have to suffer being oppressed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said that we also may have grown, had our older siblings resent us if we didn't have such strict parents, because I guess when they were older, they had the strict version of them for our older siblings, but as we grew up and our parents maybe have grown older, they don't discipline us as harshly. So our older siblings may resent us for that. If they had like a really rough upbringing. And then we also had very high expectations from our parents. So if our siblings did very well in school, we also had
Yeah.
expectations to do well,
Like your brother,
especially
they
sports.
did well. You're supposed to do the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those were kind of the bad ones, but then again, it may have just grown into good traits if we had like strong work ethic because of that. But yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So you learned that. Okay. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Christina. All right. Good job. How about, so we have oldest. Let's do the oldest. You have
Hi.
quite a group. So we have a summary, yeah, from the oldest.
Yes. Oh, Natalie, if you want to go, that's fine. Me and Natalie and some other oldest, there's around 10 of us. We're in the group and we kind of went over some of the good news that we had as the oldest. One of them would being that the general consensus is that we were all natural born leaders. So as the oldest, for our younger siblings, we were told or we learned how to lead our younger siblings.
I'm
Another
not sure
one that
about born, but they're definitely developed. Yeah. So as soon as the
yes.
youngest sibling showed up, you got the job. Yeah. You had to do that.
Exactly. Another thing that was shared is that we were all very responsible. Being the oldest, we were responsible for our younger siblings, so that taught us a lot of responsibilities. Um, we got a lot of pension from our parents, and we were the rule makers, someone shared, of our younger siblings. Let's see, another thing that was shared. Another thing is that some of the bad things that we experience or bad news as an oldest that we had a lot of expectations. We had high expectations compared to our younger siblings. Another one was that we had too much independence and it was hard to figure out alone at times. And then it was also hard for us to delegate tasks to other people because as the oldest, we were taught that we could just do things on our own.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Dee. Thank you. Good job
And
for
then
the
someone
oldest.
else,
You can
thank
see the
you.
profound, quite, And who was the one and only? Do we have one and only who would like to speak up? Or I'll have to do my only child thing. I mean, it's funny. I did presentation for ID. You were there for 60 people, and you had like what, one only. There out of 60, sometimes only is still special, but I think the demographics are changing, at least in some countries, and so there are more onlys coming. So do we have only child who'd like to to explain us what was it, good news and bad news?
Yeah, so I was the only child.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say? Oh, no. Yeah, yes. Is
Yeah,
it Chris?
and so a few advantages were getting a lot of attention from my parents growing up and always having them there to help me out with anything really going on in my life. And
Yeah,
it also created a strong bond with my parents, so I could be very
yes.
open with them.
It's very
Um,
close. Yeah,
yeah, but then it could also be seen a bit as a disadvantage to like have everything being shared with your parents. But also not having like someone around your age to relate to, or missing out on like having someone to rely on, like a different, like a sibling or something
yeah.
like that. And yeah,
Like
just
some
not,
social skills, So someone like if
yeah,
you had siblings, they kind of learn, but we had to learn outside. We have to go outside of our family with for peer socializing. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And just, yeah, not having like people around my age to share like more of like the private things I wouldn't want to share with my parents. I think that's the most, like the biggest
yeah,
disadvantage.
yeah. You want to have somebody like a buddy. Yeah, so we can
Yeah,
talk.
exactly.
Exactly. All right. Very good. Good job. Thanks so much. So thank you for speaking up. All right, my friends. Do you think so? It sounds like that. From our general discussion, but also in the breakout rooms, as you discussed. So would you agree that it seems like that there was certain repetitive, typical experiences, like for the oldest, for the youngest, for the middle? Of course, not each of us will fit perfectly in that typical, but there are some like two or three that will be similar to us. Would you agree that there was some typical experiences that happened in our childhood? Can you say yes yes, thank you, in the chat? And the second question now, this is now let's bring it from being unaware to aware, that's what we have been doing. Do you think that is still impacting us as autopilot sometimes? That you honestly, if you would look at my behavior as a leader at work, at home, that those habits that were developed that somehow impacting still us now? Can you say yes in the chat if it is? Okay, so we have lots of yes and some no's. That's good. All right. Well, let's see. So basically, what I will be asking you to think now, Will. So so now we just became aware of that programming, but so what? Yeah. So why is it important? And I will, let's see. So that's what we will do. So that's initial. That's what we'll talk about, some typical experiences. But each of you probably had some individual situations where maybe there's a different gap, age gap, or there's certain cultural agenda expectations, sometimes parental, or the oldest sibling got, they had some physical illness, or they were twins or foster and blended family situation. So you have more a bit complicating situation. That's what I developed the second model, which is Harflex. But let's talk a little bit about the how it could help us to be a better leader and to manage our blind spots and understand our strengths, because that's the model. So I ask you to think about your typical repetitive childhood experience on the left, and you're telling me that probably, at least most of you, saying that I probably developed some relationship habits that now impact me and help me to do the good job as a manager, as a professional, as a leader, team leader, with my natural strengths or my autopilot strengths, but also it could create some blind spots. So let's just we're gonna go over some examples, and what I'm asking you to do is to think individually. Which ones do you think might apply to you? Like which might be be true for you? And let's see how we go with the time. But then I might ask you again in your groups or individually to think, what is it that you develop in your childhood as the oldest, youngest, middle, or the only, that help you to be a good leader or good professional, like whatever your professional? And then what some blind spots you have because of those autopilot behavior, and what is it that you can do, what certain habits you can develop that will help you to manage those blind spots. Yeah. So if you will start with, since thank you, we're the only child, since we was the last one to talk about, usually as Christina mentioned, that basically it was just me and my parents. So the entire world revolves around me, and then the resulting habit would be the attitude is kind of everything is mine automatically. And of course, a couple business examples. Oracle founder CEO Larry Ellison, the joke about him that what's the difference between God and Larry Ellison? God doesn't think he's Larry Ellison. Then another famous only child example, I would say Frank Sinatra with his song My Way, that he considered to be an anthem, national anthem. Yeah, song about his life, but he was so famous. But the blind spot here, if you would agree with that sometimes, at least in my case, I don't naturally think about other people like automatically. Of course, with age, with experience, I became much more, thoughtful about other people, especially with my degree in psychology. But it took me a while. It took me a while. So the example of the blind spot that was impacting, one of the stories I was told by a company I worked with, that there was a very good sales guy for the last 4 years. He was like number one sales person, and he wanted to be a regional manager in the capital of that country. And his boss, she said that she was telling me that she didn't know what to do because he was so good with the sales himself, but his team did not necessarily kind of like him, the people that he would become a leader. And the reason why I didn't like him, any guesses actually from you, my friends, any guesses? Why do you think that people might be not, didn't like him necessarily? Any hypothesis?
I would hypothesize that he probably wasn't well liked because he had a me mentality, uh, a me first mentality.
Sorry, I think Pavel is cut
Okay.
or is off. We'll just wait for him.
But thank you, Natalie, for sharing that. And I also see David in the chat that said he was an only child. Does anyone have something they would like to share as well? Okay, that was very good. Willie says that he was not able to see through the lens of others. Thank you so much for that, Willie. Okay, there he is.
Am I back? Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, so
Yes.
that's I pushed the wrong button. Okay, but thank you for thank you, Dee. So that would be the example of blind spot for the only that it takes time, but when you become aware, when they explain, when we had actually this program with the company, and the guy became aware, he's like, okay, now I understand. So he started coaching and sharing, and he became a um, uh, regional manager, as he wanted to become. Another repetitive experience for the only that Christina mentioned, Home Alone. And as a result, of course, we think a lot. So people like Leonardo da Vinci, Newton, Einstein, Hans Christian Andersen, fairy tale guy, so we can come up with the stories. Psychologically, Sergey Brin from Google, he's only psychological only child, so he would only children, they're very good as a vision leaders, because they come up with these visions. Like, for example, this for Google, he came up with this: be the thought half of your brain. Yeah. And the famous vision leader, Jack Welch, who turned around GE at some point, and from 12 billion to 280 billion dollars company. He was very famous vision leader, and so that's the strength. Yeah. What's the blind spot for the only children? What would you say? What could be the blind spot that impact another blind spot for the onlys that impact our teamwork? What is it that only children they don't do automatically?
Their lack of communication.
Exactly. They don't explain. I assume you can read my mind. That's the assumption. That's kind of assumption, but that's because I was by myself all the time. And another only child example, Barack Obama. There was a failure of midterm election, and he would agree that the issue was they need to communicate better with people and negotiate with the Congress. And Jack Welch, and he would explain, and he would teach his managers that communicate, that leaders, they go down, up and down the company, and they communicate countless hours. So you have to communicate. So I will be sharing with you in a few moments, guys, that information about the strength of the only based on the literature review and the research. For the onlys would be striving for perfect results of the activities that matter for them, developing and implementing unique creative vision, also demonstrating that exuberant confidence, and willing and able to work productively. But also there's a blind spots. Yeah. And there is always good, there's always the good side of any habit that we develop, any autopilot, but also there's a blind spot. And for onlys, it's not sharing resources, having very high level of anxiety because of very high expectations that we place on ourselves. And we kind of establish our own rules of operation without communicating. So we need to be very careful about that. So communicate, and being overly critical and judgmental of others. So let me go back. I'm just looking at our timing. So what I would suggest, my friends, I will give, hello. Stop sharing. Okay. So what I like us to do is to form another for next 15 minutes. I'll give you that, like 15 minutes. We'll break out again the same groups. Can we do the same groups? and I will ask you to discuss the following. I will see in the okay breakout rooms. So let me just each of you that each group will receive. I'll give you this handout. So everybody will have this handout, which I think is very helpful to understand. Let me go through that. So we did this exercise about good news and bad news. And you're telling me that most of you at least saying that it impacts me as a leader. So what I like you to do in your each group, so the onlys, you will go through the strengths and blind spots, and then there is a youngest strengths and youngest and blind spots for the youngest, the same strengths and blind spots for the oldest, and then strengths and blind spots for the middle. So I will attach. You have that you have this as an attachment in the chat, so you can download on your. That's my gift for you. Record cannot be sent because it's currently okay. So do you guys see that in the chat? Did I do it, Dee, or Eileen? Tell me.
No, I don't see it in the chat.
In the chat, okay. So let's see. Let copy. Let me paste it. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Right. I did prepare that, and right. All right, just give me a second. Here we go. It says breakout rooms, and I cannot. Will be sent to your email. Okay, so let me just apologize about that because it's somehow not working here. Let's see, join. All right, can I do that here now? Let's see. Oops, no. So let me send you, because you will need this, and we'll go over this information with so the. 1 minute. Okay, here we go. Touch that one. Okay. D, so I sent you there. I sent you this PowerPoint. So if you would share with everybody in the chat. For some reason, I cannot do that.
Okay, sharing the PowerPoint into the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the PowerPoint that I.
Okay. Is it in via email?
Yeah, in your email. Yep.
Okay, I'll share it now.
Okay.
Right in pancake batter, they become so fluffy and airy, like cloud pancakes from Japan. If you add a pink.
I do think that someone has their mic.
Okay.
In the
So
meantime, while I find it, would you like to answer some questions that are in the chat? While I
yes,
send this PowerPoint?
Can you, yeah, if, because the next, we'll have 15 minutes in the breakout rooms for you guys, for the oldest, middle, for the youngest, again, to look through those strengths and to look at their blind spots of their, like middle, they look at the middle, youngest, they look at the youngest, oldest, they look, and they pick ones that would apply, that you agree that you do have that autopilot strengths, but also there are some blind spots that you recognize you have because you were programmed this way. And then to think about, give me one example from the group about particular blind spot that you recognize and you think, what is it that you can do? Thanks so much, Dee. Yeah, so now it's in the chat. You can see those slides with the strengths and the blind spots.
Yes, so everybody has received the PowerPoint. So if everyone could just look through it before we attend the breakout rooms, and then we'll discuss, as Pavel says, some of the strengths and
And
blind
blind
spots
spot.
that
Blind
we've
spot.
went through. So
Okay, so everybody, can you download that PowerPoint so you have that? And then with whoever is not in the breakout rooms, we have a discussion here. I'll continue with my presentation. And then we'll compare the notes when they'll come back. So we'll see what would be some strengths and blind spots that impact us as the leaders when you work with other people. And what can we do about that? Okay, are we clear? Can we do the breakout?
yes. So anybody that was in the firstborn, please join the firstborn. If you were in the secondborn, please join the middle child, I should say. And if you were only child, please join the same groups. And then we'll discuss it in our groups.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Okay. Yeah, so people going to the groups?
yes.
Okay, very good. So let me, so I will continue with my quick presentation. So we have, while they're working for 15 minutes and preparing, then let me go over them a little bit again, the same about middle children, for example. So can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. All right. So middle would be that, as you were mentioning in our prior discussion, that you basically had to share everything. You're kind of balancing, and you ended up negotiating, trying to. So as a result of that repetitive experience, guess what? Very famous entrepreneurs and business leaders, they are middle children, because partially because they're great negotiators. They know how to negotiate. That's example of recent International Monetary Fund director Kristalina Georgieva from Bulgaria. And she is famous for her ability to build consensus among global economic powers with competing agendas, which is not easy to do. You might don't like, of course, Donald Trump. Maybe you love Donald Trump, but the way how he sold to American people first time himself, he said, I'm a good deal, I make good deals. And here we go. So that's his good example of the middle child, who is another strength, as we talked about, that ability to keep attention on himself. Say he's brilliant. And actually the studies, speaking about negotiation, those of you who are interested in the chat, just indicate that we can share those studies. I don't like to overwhelm you now. That recent studies that show that middle children, they have this negotiation skills advantages. Another repetitive experience from the middle children, that they are able to see, they were kind of locked between oldest, youngest, and if it was larger family in the middle. So they're naturally mediators and peacemaking, and they take, as Eileen said, like with a heart, like they're trying to make sure that everybody's happy and everything is fair and just. Sometimes we go to extreme, of course, like people like Lenin. I've originally from the Soviet Union, so Lenin, I feel there, let's take take everything from the rich, let's share with everybody. Who do you think came up with the idea that all men are created equal? Do you think the oldest will come up, or the only? No, no, it's a middle child. Thomas Jefferson, the third of 10, the idea. And of course, people who were able, who would fight for the rights of others, who would fight for the rights of others, like Susan B. Anthony and Martin Luther King, who was willing actually to sacrifice their life, for the rights of other people. And so this is a very nice example. Chuck Finney, if you never heard about him, highly suggested to read the book Billionaire. He was a billionaire. The guy, whenever you fly in the airports, he will say duty free. That's what he created in 50s, I believe, the company. And nobody knew that he was a billionaire because he just shared all his wealth through the philanthropy, but anonymously. And Bill Gates, Melinda French Gates, and Warren Buffett have heard about him, and they ended up doing the Giving Pledge organization that ask billionaires to share the wealth, with people. And there is some research shows that middle children, they do come up in comparison to other children. They score highest on agreeableness, honesty, and humility. So it's a little bit about only children. What would be their potential blind spot? Of course, they sacrifice their own needs for the sake of the relationship with others. They might ended up as like being people pleasers. They hate people who are dictators. But then, if you have power, like this is a good example, Jamie Dimon of Chase for 20 plus years, 25 years, I believe he's CEO. He created culture what's called like no bullies here. Managers cannot bully their subordinates, and even the customer, like if they have an abusive customer, they would fire customers, and they call it no assholes culture, rule culture. Very, very strong. But another thing about middle children, that blind spot is like, don't call me the boss. They don't like to be called the boss. But when they become bosses, they're very good because they do care not only about getting the task done, but also make sure that the people are happy, and they're engaged and work well. So, and if you have any doubts about middle children, then some people have negative images of middle children. There's a very good book by Catherine Salmon, The Secret Power of Middle Children. So please read that book. But this is their strengths and then blind spot, and you have that information. For the youngest, let me go with that. The rules were more relaxed, as we discussed, and you my friends mentioned. So as a result, as the oldest, they sometimes the good thing, they are very innovative. They can take risk and think out of the box. And actually, in my comments to my TEDx talk that has more than 161 viewers now, the youngest in the comments, they do talk about that. I want to revolutionize. I'd like to innovate, things that, and research supports that. The later born founders of the companies, they pursue more innovation generation rather than early born. Like early born, like firstborns, they improve what is there. They make it perfect, they make it better, they make it bigger. The youngest, they come up with something that never existed before. They revolutionize, like King David, who used not traditional weaponry to fight with Goliath. Actually, there was a research came out of 23 out of 28 scientific revolutions have been led by the later borns. Mozart, youngest, revolutionized classical music. Antonio Gaudi, those of you who love Barcelona and Spain, and when the Gaudi, who created amazing, absolutely different type of architecture. I would say that growing like plants so he was the youngest. Of course, famous rebels, Edward Snowden and Bernie Sanders. At some point, he did say that we need a political revolution in this country. And famous General Douglas MacArthur, his famous quote that you're remembered for the rules you break. So let me jump here with the blind spots of the youngest. Not always consider the consequences of your actions. Yeah. And of course, if you know the history, General Douglas MacArthur lost his job because he did make impulsive interview with about threatening Chinese with a nuclear bomb, and he was basically, it was insubordination to President Harry Truman, so he was fired, dismissed. And then example that I told you about, that David Sokol, he was the youngest, and so he did this impulsive buying stocks, and everybody thought was crazy, unsuccess, and kind of blind spot. It was a blind spot that Berkshire Charlie Munger he mentioned. And if those of you who know, this me in Jerusalem with the Tom of King David's, that if you know his history, he did his impulsive behaviors, and then he had to repent for them. So again, there is many examples, but also recent research about that. There is association of being youngest sibling with a higher risk-taking behavior, especially leadership positions. So this is a recent research. If you have any interest, I will send you the information. Also, this was troubling for me when I found that the youngest siblings are overrepresented in metrics tied to risks such as criminal justice system involvement and risk phone life choices. And here's my 2 years old grandson, who is the youngest of two. So what a 3-year-old guy can do. And his mother called him my heart attack son. Look at this guy. Yeah. So youngest. The another thing that we have not mentioned, actually, I should have asked. They said that it's about 60, I believe, like 64% of the youngest. They report that they develop humor as a way to get attention, because all other niches were taking. So they were rewarded by parents to being cute and funny and enjoy being the center of attention. So they ended up being, famous comedians. Some, you can probably recognize some of them right here. But also, yeah, so this is a funny for the, she was the youngest of two brothers. Around Christmas in the mall he went to, and he started enjoying his, my 6 years old, and he's enjoying being playful. One of the blind spots for the youngest is they were called babies, and so sometimes they ended up with this image of being a baby, and they not apply, they don't stop their career by their own choice. Instead of pursuing to become number one, they kind of, because they think, well, there are other people who are smarter than me. But this is like not true. It is true maybe when you were a younger kid, yeah, when you were a child, but not true as the oldest. And so it's very important message from Alan Alexander Milne, the youngest of three. Promise, that's for his son that he did. Promise you will always remember you're braver than you believe, you're stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And again, they're youngest, when they become leaders, like they're absolutely great, and they're kind of fun, and people enjoy being led by them. We have actually the Pope, the recent Pope, Leo. He is the youngest, so I'm expecting some revolutionary actions on his part. Okay, and then we'll talk about a little bit the oldest. Let me stop the sharing. How's our time going? I mean, how much time we have for the breakout rooms?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. So can I ask you, before I show you any, actually, what would you say, any oldest here in the audience, about the blind spots? What would be the strengths of the oldest that you develop in our childhood? Like, what is the things that, and you still use it as an adult? So those of you here, and any comments from the oldest who are not in the breakout room here? Would you agree that, remember, I think that Dee mentioned that you kind of, as oldest, you were like you were born leader. You automatically take responsibility and take charge. So you're not afraid of being in control. So any oldest, do we have any oldest here and there?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm an oldest. So I do believe that automatically you want to take control.
Uh-huh. And yes, all right. And then what would be the potential blind spot
Potential blind spot is
associated with that? Yeah.
not understanding or recognizing the needs of others at times, I would say, because it's the need to control your environment, and I don't think that you can always control your environment. So that would be a
Uh-huh.
strong blind spot.
Okay, that's good. And anything else? Any other?
Um, I'm not sure. That's probably the blind spot.
Well, it's usually for the oldest, it is very difficult to talk about blind spots because they grow up, they have to be there perfect, and so it's not something that they typically um, they typically do. So let me just share. So this is there in the PowerPoint that I shared, their strengths. But we agree that feeling responsible, achieving high quantity and quality, gaining and using power and control, but also caring for your people, like really like care, making sure that they're good. But also there's a list of the blind spots, so which that sometimes health and family work balance could be an issue. And then things like delegating or to be a bit too overly critical. Does it ring a bell in any way?
It does. It does.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. So are they coming back
They are coming back. It will
in
close in 20 seconds.
20 seconds? Okay. All right. All right. Very good. So I'd like to hear from the groups if you discovered that any of those PowerPoint information that kind of it's correct for you individually, and maybe you can uh, let us know here about your example. Like this is a strength, yet I do have that, and now I understand. They were developed partially in my childhood as autopilot, and I'm using that, and I'm happy about that. Yet, what could be some blind spot that I need to pay attention, and maybe some thoughts? What can you do about that? Like, what are some what can you develop to balance those blind spots? So your relationship will not suffer, your team will not suffer. So I'd like to hear from anybody from their either middle children or their oldest or their youngest from your discussion in the groups.
Hey, so I'll go first as an older child. This is
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Natalie. So we discussed, have a good day. So we discussed some of the blind spots and some of the, I felt like they were all, well, we felt collectively as a group they could all be weakness or a strength, but we discussed that some of the strengths were definitely being strong competitors, gaining and using power and control over tasks and people involved, and having that caring, supporting, and feeling for their people, like leading with empathy. And we
Yeah.
just talked a lot about how we do that naturally. We do that in our teams. But we also talked about those blind spots, saying that like sometimes we throw ourselves into the task so much that we
Yeah.
neglect other things, such as our family or the work balance or our health. We also talked about like how sometimes we can come across as domineering, just because we want to gain control of the situation, but other people are seeing it as like too bossy or micromanaging or over controlling. We talked once again about having those difficulties delegating tasks to others, which stems, of course, from childhood and having to make hard choices on our own and feeling like no one's going to be able to do it like we do it. And the main one that I feel like we all resonated with heavily was being overly defensive of our own decisions or opinions. That was one that really hit me because I've heard that all my life about being defensive. So we all kind of discussed about how we can be more aware of it and just recognize that that's what's happening.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. And I think the message for me, what is, I don't know, maybe um, it's like it's not our fault because we share, it's only child. I share lots of many blind spots from the firstborns as well. But it's like, is it my fault that I have that? No, I was programmed. It's like my accent. I was programmed to be maybe defensive. I was programmed to be maybe domineer because that's what worked in the childhood. But then that's what we're doing now. We are connecting that sometimes because of that autopilot, because it's a habit. So it's, under stress, especially, like we go quickly that familiar route, but then now we become aware. And then the good news that because it's only habit, it's not who you are. Yeah. It's not who we are. It's just a habit. And if it's just a habit, we can, guess what? We can develop a new habit to balance this out. So what can be developed, let's say with a domineering, like let's say people find older sometimes, like this my example, that or intimidating, even like the team was intimidated. So what is it specifically oldest can do to to what kind of habits I could develop to balance this out? Any thoughts?
Maybe developing better communication skills,
Like,
learning how to speak to people instead of talking at people. Being better listeners. I feel
yeah,
like.
That's what I
that's
was going
right.
to say. Better listeners.
Yeah, and active listening, like techniques like communication, like active listening. And if there is a problem, don't jump with the problem solving yourself. Ask your people first, for example. Yeah. So those things like, coaching. So there is a potential as you become aware, as we become aware. Okay, so I do this autopilot. That's fine. It's working. When it's stress, I have to act fast. Then it's fine. But there are sometimes situations when I have time. So how about I will involve people? Because if I keep giving them solutions, they just, they used to be soldiers. They never want to think on their own. Yeah, so that could be the potential blind spot. No, very good job. Anybody from youngest or the middle about the blind?
Youngest.
Go
Youngest,
ahead,
for sure.
youngest. All right,
Yeah,
Alisa.
we're going to tag team you.
Yeah.
My name's
Yeah.
Elisa, and I'm from BB in Texas. So I was having hearing situation with the sound, but we both kind of came up with the same solutions. With being the youngest, we
Hmm.
have a tendency to be spontaneous
Yeah.
and not think out things. And one of my
Yeah.
prime examples was my mom always called me Tigger. And the reason why is sometimes I would think of a plan, not thinking out, and just go do it, spontaneously. For a prime example, 1990, I told my mom on Monday I was moving to Florida, and I moved to Florida on Friday and only had 700 bucks in my name. But I didn't even plan it out. I just left.
Yeah. I think like I totally agree. Like we're very impulsive in our decision making. I think like one of the strengths is that like we're very much a risk taker. So we'll actually just go for it and not really think it through. It could be a
Life
good
is not
thing.
boring. Life is not boring.
Never, yeah, never boring on our side because like we're just confident enough to just do it. Because I think since we've always been in the spotlight a lot of the time too, I think another member of our team was saying that like we've always been the center of attention as a youngest sibling. So we were just like put in the spotlight very early. So we had the confidence, we had the willingness to like work with people, and we just had like a better attitude when it comes to dealing with emotions and stuff. So yeah, and I think if
We
we're
love harder.
yeah, we do. We
Bring
love to
we
get
bring a
things.
lot of more emotions in it because we
Yeah, we
see
do.
our older siblings what trauma and
Suffer. Yeah.
things that they went
Yeah,
through. We
we do.
already seen it. We
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
the start line. We're even though we're in the end of the line.
Yeah.
Right.
So how about impulsivity? What can be done? I'm just curious about any thoughts. What would you say? What could be helpful? Sometimes, sometimes it's works. You take
I'm gonna
risk, you
make you
enjoy
guys
that.
laugh on this one. I let my husband have the credit cards.
Yeah,
All
like
right, so
having
you use
support.
that's very wise. So I personally sometimes, because only they could be impulsive too. That's something common with the youngest. I have friends who, like, before I make any big decisions, I have to I have to discuss. I always like, let me postpone, let me discuss with either middle child or the oldest, because they always tell you they're like, that no, it's like being critical. And so they will help me to be more grounded in that. No,
Yeah.
yeah.
I actually make goals now, and then I actually make plans, and I actually look at them before I spontaneous.
That's great.
Shopping wise, especially, I'm a very coupon person. I don't jump. I do more research now
Yeah.
before I
Okay.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
research would be huge.
So we're developing. It is possible, and that's what I'd like to end with my part. That the cool part about the concept of habit, and again, we talked about habits that kind of we were unaware. That's what happened to me in childhood that we didn't choose, but because it's just a habit, I can develop other habits to balance my blind spots. And next time, hopefully we'll discuss. We would be lovely to have another webinar, like in 3 or 4 weeks, about stress and conflict, because we can use this model not only to understand ourselves and our blind spots and strengths and how can we be a better team leader for our people, but also how to have less stress and conflict, unnecessary conflict in relationships. So we'll spend some time on that maybe next time. But the cool part is that it is possible to develop a new habit. You can learn new psychological languages. Like if all this you don't delegate, but guess what? You can learn if you repetitively would do the repetitively delegation, it will become a new autopilot, a new harp. So you'll become much more balanced as a leader, as a professional. Okay, let me just show a couple slides on this that I wanted, but then we'll open for the discussion. Let's see. Yes, there's a couple examples, but we don't have time. So I also would like to mention. Yeah, am I sharing or no? I'm not sharing. Yeah, so no.
No, you're not sharing.
Okay. So here we go. Now I'm sharing. So as only child, I'm just keep talking to myself, which is natural. But we do have a YouTube channel. So if you'd like to have a bit more fun, we have some about blind spots. We'll start posting, and we'll create more videos about that. And then this is what I use. Like if I'd like to develop a new habit, I will use this chart, for example. I found that 66 days magic I call. So whenever I do my new behavior, then I know that after 2-3 months, after 66 days, it becomes autopilot. For example, as only child, one of my blind spots is perfectionism and being excessively anxious. So I need to learn how to that was my lifetime project. I wish I knew that like when I was 20 or 30, so I could work. I just started in my 50s when I discovered this model. That, for example, I started doing yoga since 2019. And if you would tell me that in 2019 that I would be yoga addict, I would say you're crazy because I don't have any flexibility, blah, blah, blah. But now, because I have done my repetition, it's something that I am always looking forward to. And this model that we're discussing both in Harflex, I think the cool part about that it helps us with the ability to reinvent ourselves repeatedly, because things like COVID changed many of our lives, like AI is changing. So we always have to be ready for change and to be able to reinvent. And by understanding how we were programmed in the past, I think that it gives us a belief, that we can reprogram, because it's just a habit. So my wish for you is a good luck with reinventing yourself. And let's just open for the thank you for your participation and open for the questions and answers.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Pavel. Thank you for those powerful insights and for giving us a new lens on how we lead, communicate, and show up under pressure. Today was not about learning one more leadership technique, it was about awareness. And awareness is where change begins. Many of us likely recognize a pattern, a habit, or a moment that felt familiar. That recognition is the first step towards leading with more intention and creating stronger teams. So, this is for the audience, this is your time to engage. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments now, and we will spend the next few minutes addressing them during our Q&A. And for those who would like who would like to go a bit deeper, we'll also open a breakout room immediately after the session. If something resonated and you want to continue the conversation or ask a more direct question, you're welcome to stay and connect with Pavel here. Please also follow Pavel on LinkedIn. It's his name, Pavel Mashenko. And then also on all social media platforms, it's Leader Talent, I'm sorry. Uh, with that, let's move into the Q&A. So we'll address if you have any questions in the chat. I'm going to turn it over to Dean and Eileen who've been taking notes.
So the first question
Yes.
that I have from Bila's iPhone, sorry, is are there cultural variation examples in Middle East and Africa? If the male is after a female, they get the treatment of the elder, etc.
Oh, yeah. I need a bit more information, more details. I'm sorry. So it's like cultural. Well, generally, again, what are the sources for our autopilots and the blind spots potentially is family programming, cultural, of course, cultural programming. So there is a cultural nuances that impact. For example, I just talked to the executive 2 weeks ago, and he happened to be the firstborn, but and he's like high achiever, going to become number one, very competitive. But when I said that, are you responsible for other people? He said no, because in my culture, I'm like, he's a Sicilian family. He said that firstborn son, they don't take care of their younger siblings. It's the next older sister who would do that, the firstborn sister. So there is a cultural nuances, of course, they impact how what kind of habits we develop. But I don't know if I'm answering the question that was asked actually about Africa. Possibly to take, yeah. Did I answer the question, or I didn't, or do we have the participant
I don't
here?
see the participant here, but it sounds like you did answer the question. Another question was, what is Pavel's social media? So I did put it in the chat. It is Leader Talent on his Instagram and his Facebook. I'm sorry, his Instagram is Leader Talent. His TikTok is also Leader Talent. His YouTube is, I will put that all in the chat for his YouTube and his Instagram.
Any other questions, my friends?
I do have a question in regards to one of my leaders that's also on this call. So she wanted to get like a full breakdown or some feedback on the process that's manager focused on all blind spots and strengths. So Taisha, are you on this call?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, gonna put me on the spot. It wasn't really a question. It was a suggestion to get anonymous votes from our own team to see basically how they feel about our management skills, and based on that, like we would know how to move forward on what to change about ourselves, but make it anonymous so they'll be able to say the truth and not feel like, they're going to be judged by it.
Okay, and do you guys feel like that's a good suggestion for a company's point of view? Do you think that will help with our managers within our
Um,
organization?
so if I could suggest, Pavel has a test. It's the HARP assessment test. We can take your information and send it over. Where it gives you one harp, and then he could do like a strategy session with you on all the different on the harp framework. And I think that would be excellent working with your team so you can see it, and it's also one-on-one. So
Yeah.
we can get your contact. Does that work, Pavel?
Yeah, I just like to say that this model, from my experience, from the feedback that I have received, um, the blind spots that, like if we have this assessment, as Kadian mentioned, so you will end up with a list of your blind spots, yeah, that basically go with those habits, relationship habits I have developed in my childhood. And the interesting comment that I always get, that I'm not surprised now, but that the people will say it's exactly, if you read my performance review, like what people say when I'm not in the room, or what my supervisor think about my behavior, that usually blind spot would be that blind spot in my profile. So this instrument, it gives a good reflection on how other people perceive me. And when people are aware about that, then it makes it easier for communication and better teamwork.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say that he also does training in person. So if anybody would like training with their team, then that is a service that we do offer. Another question is, I am the oldest child, yet did not grow up with siblings in the same home. Do you feel, sorry, because of so I would follow more the only child strengths and blind spots?
Yeah, so because in this model that we're talking about, the Harflex, it's more psychological. It's not your biological fact that you were the oldest and then you have the younger siblings. It sounds like in your situation, yes, psychologically you will be an only child, because you spend most of the time, like me, by yourself, thinking, envisioning, dealing with adults, and so yes, the answer is you will look like, if you would take these PowerPoints that I shared, I would look at the psychological only child profile, like strengths and blind spots, and see if any of those would apply to you. With the blind spot, my always suggestion that do not make your own judgment about blind spots, but talk to people you trust in your life, because that's why they're blind spot, because we cannot see them sometimes, or we underestimate them. So it's a good idea to check with, if you have a supervisor that you trust, or in your personal relationship, like say, hey, psychologist says this. Have I ever done this from your point of view? And get the feedback, because feedback is a crucial for their blind spots. Yeah. Any other? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to everyone that attended. If you did not, we are going to send out Alyssa.
Alisa raised her hand. Yep.
I have one question, being the youngest. Do you consider our blind spots not just being spontaneous, but looking for acceptance because of being so young?
Yeah, of course. You're looking for. As the youngest, typically, again, it depends on the family situation, but typically you have lots of attention and kind of, being loved and accepted. So you continue do that in their as an adult, typically. And that's why it usually youngest, they make very good trainers, like the person who is entertaining, engaging with other. They're very good salespeople, very good influencing, convincing, because they're creative. and they're kind of fun, and then connect not only on this level but also on a heart level, like immediately with the person. They have this amazing power of connecting on emotional level. Charming.
We like giving more.
You what?
We like giving love. We express and we
You
love
were giving
more.
love freely, and then you will give away. Is a famous French writer Albert Camus. He was youngest, and he said, "The main duty in your life is love. Is just to give love to the world because you receive that, and it's very important." So, and that's the power. I didn't. I mean, I didn't have time to mention like airlines, for example, how it translates in business. The guy who started Southwestern Airlines, Herb Kelleher, he was the youngest, and he built amazing culture. Like when you fly, and I think he died, but still the culture is still there. It's funny how it's that very, like they make their fun safety training on the airplanes. They talk to differently to customers. They're trying to make it a loving experience, not just a journey from A to B, but kind of fun experience for people. That's the power of the youngest.
Thank you. You hit it right on the money. Thank you.
Thank you thanks to your siblings and your family.
we have another question from
Christina.
And Christina's question is, what advice would you give to someone who grew up as the youngest sibling who's struggling to build their leadership skills?
Yeah. Well, well, I would suggest to take Harflex assessment because you will see how many. I mean, it's a very good question because the first thing, you were programmed to see yourself as a baby because usually, youngest they call baby, baby, baby. So the mindset, and I would say yes, in your family, till moment you die, you will be baby in your family. Like there is no other way. But in the adult world, nobody knows you were baby. But objectively, you have very high emotional intelligence skills. We just talked about you're fun and engaging. So people will be happier and having more fun if you are the leader. So please become one. So you kind of have to work on this mindset. And I did have, for example, I used to work in Russia a lot with public administrators. There was a guy in Siberia. He was the youngest. He said, yeah, the blind spot is not to see myself as a number one, not to see myself as a leader. But when he learned that this is just psychological programming, so it means you can change that. Yeah, he did change, and he applied, and now he's a kind of big boss in the capital of the country. And I talked to him about a few years ago, and he said, I've changed that insight that it was not who am I, just a habit of thinking, of perceiving myself. But I can see myself differently, and objectively, you do have much more skills to be a great leader as a youngest. I wish we had more youngest as the leaders. Will have more fun in life. I'm not against all, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
Another question that was shared in the chat from Esther. Do you have any advice for someone as an only child who struggles building relationships in team? I can be recluse easily, but leads to emotional disconnect as a leader.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any communication courses like training, again, we provide some of that, and it's a specific coaching, like how to communicate basically more, because sometimes the assumption that people understand what I have in my head, but that's I have to communicate as so taking advice is I ended up in psychology, because I was only child, and I ended up getting 2 degrees in psychology just to learn to look normal a little bit, socially. But so to invest your time there, yeah, with developing. I have friends who has middle children, and they're natural, so I just learn how they communicate and blah blah, just imitate them. Did I answer the question or not?
Yes, we will have a second one, Diana. I know that someone in my group, if Bob is still here, I thought he had an excellent question. If he would like to share that with you. Okay.
No, maybe Bob isn't here.
Yeah, I don't think he's here.
Yeah, but for all the attendants, what we'll do is that we'll send you the link to the recording so you can watch it again. And then we'll also send you the assessment test where you get one harp. And then if you wanted to do a little bit more, then obviously then you'd have to schedule some time with Pavel one-on-one. So thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate your participation and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Enjoy your life.